The Bible is indispensable. The Bible is inspired. The third reason it can't be changed is because it is inerrant. Inerrant simply means that it is true in every part. In every detail, the Bible is inerrant. You can flip back to chapter 2. Only this time, look at chapter 2, verse 15. Do your best to present yourself to God as a worker who is approved, who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling, in this phrase right here, the word of truth. The Bible is the word of truth. If every syllable, I want you to see how these are connected. If God makes the world to reveal himself and he reveals himself through the Bible, then every word of the Bible is going to be inspired because it's coming from heaven to earth. If every word of the Bible is inspired, it follows that every word of the Bible will be inerrant. It won't have flaws in it. It won't be wrong. It'll be true and it'll be trustworthy. And that's why Paul can call it the word of truth. Nothing else is the word of truth. Imagine holding up a newspaper and saying this is the word of truth. Imagine holding up even a book of fiction and saying this is the word of truth. Imagine even holding up a book of nonfiction. Winston Churchill has written more words in the English language than any other author. Most of it nonfiction, most of it personal accounts of the several wars he fought in, but none of which you would hold up and say, this is infallible. Of course not. The Bible alone is infallible. It's not capable of error because it comes from God himself. And that's why every word must be believed. This is what Proverbs 30 verse 5 says when it says every word of God is tested. Or Psalm 119, your word is pure. It is silver tried in a furnace on earth, refined 7 times, the psalmist says, 7 times. That means that any impurity is driven out of it. When you refine something, you're exposing it to heat and pressure and tension so that the impurities rise and are taken out of it. That's how you refine silver. That's how you refine gold. The psalmist's point in Psalm 119 is that every word of God is incredibly pure. There's no impurity in it. If this book was man's opinion, then it could be constrained. Man's opinion it can go this way and that so quickly. If this book was politically correct, subject to the winds of culture, it could be quarantined. If this book was the product of man's education, it could be improved upon, of course. If this book depended on the educational level of its authors, people can always learn more, so it could be improved. But none of those things are true of the Bible because it is not man's opinion, it is not politically correct, it is not the product of man's education, it is pure, high-dosage truth. And so Jesus can say in John 17:17, your word is truth. That's what Paul means in 2 Timothy 2, verse 18, when he says that there are some, look at the phrase in verse 18, who have swerved from the truth. It means they've left God's word. Or verse 25, he says you correct the false teachers by bringing them back to the truth. That's the point. The word truth, by the way, it just means things as they really are. Truth is things as they really are. And people are so bad at truth because they see things from their own perspective and their own lens. They don't have a good gauge on what is true. But God, who creates all things and is sovereign over all things and sees all things, he defines what is true. Something is true in as much as it corresponds to him and his nature. And since every word of God is from him, it's all true. Titus 1 verse 2 says that God cannot lie. And so, of course, his word would be true. This is a book that is filled with truth. That does not mean, I would say don't come up and ambush me in the hallway afterwards with this, but I think I'm safe on that today. It does not mean there's not difficulties in the Bible. It does not mean that there's not, one gospel writer describes the robe that was put on Jesus' head as purple and another scarlet. Aha, contradiction. It doesn't mean there's not those kind of difficulties, and there's a very easy answer for that one along with other ones. Ask me in the hallway afterwards if you want the answer for that one. Doesn't mean there's not difficulties. Doesn't mean you can't spend your lifetime studying it. Of course you can spend your lifetime studying it. It's not a stream of truth that you can skip over. It's an ocean of truth that you can drown in. You can spend your whole life studying it and still learn more and more. It's simple enough a child can read it and believe it and understand it. It's complex enough that theology majors can always keep learning. The point is, because it's a book of truth, it's inerrant, you will never be wrong. Listen carefully. You will never be wrong if you believe this book. And this book goes counter to so many things that you want to do in life. You have desires for what you want to do in life, and this book says, no, that's sin. You'll never be wrong if you side with this book. There's things that you love in this world that the Bible declares as sin. You will never be wrong if you leave those loves behind and just love this book instead. You will never be powerless, is Paul's point in chapter 2, verse 9. You will never be powerless if you possess this book. You can be locked down, locked out, chained in, or held back, and it's no difference to the power of your life in this world, because your power comes through this book, which is eminent. It is powerful. It is transcendent. It is near. It is out there, and it is living and active. As a result, Paul says in verse 10 that he is willing. Just look at the kind of life that comes from believing this. He says, I endure everything for the sake of the elect. He's speaking here of people that God has chosen for salvation who don't yet know the gospel. That's the category he's talking about here. There are people in the world that do not at this moment know the gospel, but God has chosen them for salvation. They don't know that because they haven't heard of Jesus yet. That's the category he's talking about here. And he says, I will endure everything for their sake, so that they may obtain salvation that is in Jesus Christ with eternal glory.